The fire crackled in the stove, warmth creeping up my hands clutching the coffee cup. Outside, the lake wind cut through the snow. My old left knee ached again, a reminder a soldier never forgets. Brothers, leaving the battlefield doesn't mean the war is over. Sometimes, the safe zone is just a thin curtain, and silence, if you listen carefully, is more terrifying than gunfire. The ghosts of the past know how to find their way back. That night in Duluth, the monster didn't roar. It knocked with a polite smile and a clipboard. A black SUV waited outside the school. A girl named Lily Hart clutched her sketchbook as if it were her life. A man named Trent Maddox carried papers to legitimize the kidnapping. And Ranger, the German Shepherd, stood still as a silent warning. If cornered, will you run or hold the line? Sit down. Listen to this whole story, then take a survival lesson. For those, wind off the lake. Winter clamped down on Duluth, and the wind from Lake Superior cut through coats like it had teeth. Ethan Cole kept his hands in his pockets as he walked the sidewalk above the harbor. Snow had crusted into hard ridges along the curb, and the street lights still glowed faintly against the gray morning. His navy winter parka hung to mid-thigh, the collar up. Under it, the red and black flannel showed at the throat. Faded jeans, brown leather boots that knew every crack in the ice. His left knee ached the way it always did when the weather turned. It was not a sharp pain anymore. It was older than that, a reminder that his body had once been used like a tool. He adjusted his stride without thinking, keeping the stiffness from turning into a limp people could read like a headline. He did not like being seen. Ranger moved beside him, a 5-year-old German Shepherd with a black saddle and tan legs, ears erect, amber-brown eyes scanning the world as if it might change its mind and bite. The dog did not pull, did not bounce, did not bark at nothing. Ranger's calm was not softness, it was discipline. Ethan watched the dog the way a sailor watches weather. Ranger's nose worked in small, steady pulls, cold air, salt and metal from the lake, old diesel, coffee from a shop that had just unlocked its door. Then something else, faint and wrong, a sour note that did not belong to snow or water. Ethan followed Ranger's gaze and saw a cluster of kids moving toward Westgate Middle School. Boots slipping, backpacks swinging. Their voices were loud in the thin air, the sound of easy lives. He told himself to keep walking. He was not here to fix the world. He was here to stay small, stay quiet, pay rent, sleep, repeat. That was the deal he had made with himself when he came back. The bus stop ahead was a simple shelter. Plastic panels scratched by years of keys and boredom. A girl stood under it alone. She looked about 12, small, sharp-shouldered, with straight light brown hair tucked into a knit cap that sat too loose on her head. Her face was pale from cold, freckles scattered over her nose like a soft spray of cinnamon. A thin winter coat hung on her frame, not thick enough for Duluth, and her hands were bare. She held a sketchbook tight to her chest as if it had a pulse. Ranger slowed. Not fear. Not aggression. Attention. Ethan's eyes swept the area. 2 cars parked down the street. A plow idling farther off. A man in a reflective vest smoking outside a corner store. Nothing obvious. The girl's gaze stayed down, like she had learned that looking up invited trouble. A boy slid close, taller, broad for his age, maybe 14. Blonde hair under a beanie, cheeks red from wind. Expensive gloves. He bumped her shoulder on purpose, the kind of careless contact that was not careless at all. Her sketchbook dipped, her breath hitched. "You don't belong here," the boy murmured, low enough that his friends could laugh without the adults hearing the words. 2 other kids, a girl and another boy, snickered behind him. The sound was thin and mean, like a crack in ice. The girl's eyes darted to the road, to the school doors, to anywhere but them. Ethan felt a familiar heat in his chest. the one he hated, because it meant he still cared. He told himself to keep moving. Ranger did not. The dog stopped so cleanly, Ethan almost stumbled. Ranger's body angled between Ethan and the bus shelter. A quiet barrier. Ears forward, tail still. That silent posture Ranger used when the world shifted 1 degree toward danger. The blond boy looked up and noticed Ethan. Adults were easy to ignore. Most of them didn't want trouble. Most of them had schedules. Ethan stepped closer anyway. He was around 40, tall and broad-shouldered, built solid under winter layers, with a square jaw and a straight nose that had seen enough fights. A neat beard framed his mouth, and there were a few silver strands at his temples that caught the weak light. His dark brown eyes were warm until they weren't. He did not raise his voice. He did not smile. The boy's gaze flicked to Ranger. The German shepherd did not bare teeth. He did not growl. He simply looked at the boy as if he were weighing him and finding him light. The boy's confidence wobbled. Ethan crouched and picked up a pencil that had rolled into the snow near the girl's boots. His knee complained, and he ignored it. He brushed the snow off the pencil with his thumb and held it out. The girl hesitated before taking it. Her fingers were so cold, they moved like they belonged to someone else. Ethan kept his voice low. For her. Not for the kids. Don't let anyone teach you you're small, he said. The girl's eyes finally lifted. They were a clear gray blue. Too steady for 12. She nodded once, like she was storing the words for later. A school bus hissed to a stop. Doors opened. Kids surged. The blond boy moved with them, pretending he had never been there. Ethan watched the girl step onto the bus. She chose a seat near the front, alone. She pressed her sketchbook to her chest again, as if it could keep her upright. Ranger's ears remained forward until the bus pulled away. Ethan exhaled. He did not like the way this felt, the way it tugged at the part of him that used to act before thinking, the part that had made him useful in war and miserable in peace. He turned to leave. That was when Ranger's head snapped toward the street. Ethan followed the line of the dog's attention and saw it. A black SUV parked across from the school, a little too far from the curb. Engine running. The windows were dark. Too dark for this hour, for this cold. It did not belong to a parent dropping a kid off. It did not belong to a delivery. It belonged to waiting. Ethan's spine tightened. Ranger's nostrils flared. That sour note again. Old smoke. Cheap cologne. Oil. Ethan took one step, then another, angling for a better view without making it obvious. He kept his shoulders loose. He kept his hands in his pockets. A figure inside the SUV shifted, just enough for Ethan to catch the faint glow of a phone screen, pointed toward the school doors. Ranger stayed silent, but his body went rigid, like a spring pulled tight. Ethan's jaw clenched. He had come here to disappear, but the world had a way of finding the people it could hurt and asking the wrong man to look away. The black SUV still sat outside the school gate, as if it were counting the breaths of every child who stepped out. And when Ranger stopped, ears raised, Ethan understood something was coming fast, faster than the lake wind. The art room door. Ethan did not follow the black SUV. Not yet. He forced himself to keep walking, boots crunching over salted snow, shoulders loose the way he'd learned to carry them when someone might be watching. A glance was not proof. A feeling was not evidence. And in Duluth, plenty of people sat in warm cars with the engine running, because winter made patience expensive. Still, Ranger's attention stayed fixed on that vehicle until it finally rolled forward and disappeared into traffic, slow as a thought you couldn't shake. Ethan waited 2 full blocks before turning down an alley. Only then did he let himself breathe. He told himself the same thing he told himself every time the past tried to climb back into his hands. You are not on a team anymore. You are not in charge of a mission. You are a man buying groceries and paying rent. Ranger flicked his ears and looked up at him as if he didn't believe a word of it. That night, The lake wind rattled Ethan's windows like impatient knuckles. He sat at his small kitchen table, turning a cup of coffee between his palms, staring at a map app on his phone without really seeing it. He didn't know the girl's name. He didn't know her story. He only knew the way she'd held that sketchbook, like it was the last warm thing on earth. Ranger lay near the door, head up, not sleeping, listening to the building's sounds. The dog's tail thumped once when a neighbor passed in the hallway, then went still again. Ethan slept in short bursts and woke before his alarm. By late morning, the sky had turned the color of worn steel. Snow fell lightly, not enough to soften anything, just enough to keep the world quiet. Ethan told himself he was only walking to the corner store, but his feet carried him past the bus stop and toward Westgate Middle School. From across the street, he watched the school doors. Kids poured out, loud and careless. Parents in SUVs. A crossing guard waving them through like a conductor. Nothing out of place. Then he saw her. Lily Hart, 12, maybe. The knit cap again. The thin coat again. Sketchbook hugged tight. He knew her name because he'd asked. Not at the school. Not from the kids. From a librarian at the small branch down the street, where Ethan had gone under the excuse of returning a book he hadn't finished. Lily's a good kid, the librarian had said. An older woman with soft eyes and a tight smile, maybe late 60s, gray hair pinned back, hands stained faintly with ink. Quiet, always drawing. She lives with her grandma. Her grandma's name, Ethan had asked. Maggie Hart, the woman said. Margaret? But everyone calls her Maggie. She works here part-time when her arthritis lets her. Ethan had nodded, thanked her, and left before the conversation could turn into questions. Now Lily stood at her locker, shoulders tucked in, trying to be smaller than her own shadow. Two boys drifted closer, Kyle Benson and Jared Pike. Ethan didn't know their names yet, but he recognized the breed. Bigger than most. Loud when they had an audience. Careful when they didn't. The kind of boys who learned early that a joke could be a weapon if you aimed it right. Kyle leaned in, saying something Ethan couldn't hear. Jared laughed. Lily's fingers tightened around the sketchbook. Ethan crossed the street. Not fast, not angry. Controlled. Ranger moved beside him like a second heartbeat as Ethan approached. Kyle's eyes lifted and locked onto him. The boy's face was red from cold, his jaw already set in that teenage way of trying to look older than fear. Jared's gaze fell to Ranger and stayed there. The German Shepherd didn't bare teeth, didn't lunge, didn't even shift his stance much, but his posture was a quiet line drawn in the snow, and the boys could read it. Kyle forced a grin. Hey, mister. School property. Ethan stopped at a polite distance. Navy winter park, red and black flannel visible at the collar, faded jeans, brown boots dusted with salt. He looked like any working man in Duluth, until you looked closer, until you saw the way his eyes measured spacing and exits without moving. I'm not here for the school, Ethan said. I'm here for her. Lily turned, startled. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, like she didn't trust kindness because it usually came with a price. Kyle's grin tightened. She doesn't need you. Lily's voice came out small but steady. I'm fine. Ethan nodded once, respecting the lie. Okay. He didn't argue with her. He didn't embarrass her. He simply addressed the boys. You two have a problem. Take it up with someone your own size, he said. Kyle scoffed. It's a free country. Sure is, Ethan replied. And in a free country, people also face consequences when they pick on kids. The word consequences hit something behind Kyle's eyes. For a second, Ethan saw uncertainty. Then Kyle masked it with laughter. Jared muttered, "Let's go." They moved away, shoulders stiff, as if retreating could be called a decision instead of defeat. Lily stared at Ethan. "Why are you here?" Ethan kept his voice low. "Because yesterday I saw you freezing, and because someone was watching this school." Her breath caught. "Who?" "I don't know," Ethan said honestly, "but I know the difference between a parent waiting and someone hunting. Lily swallowed hard. People watch all the time. Not like that, Ethan said. Ranger's ears tipped forward. His nose worked the air in short pulls. Then he looked past Ethan, toward the parking lot. Ethan followed the dog's attention and saw a school staff member, a woman stepping out of a side door, carrying a cardboard box of supplies. She looked around, spotted Lily, and waved. "Lily, you're early," the woman called. She was in her 40s, average height, bundled in a long wool coat with a bright scarf. Light brown hair cut to her shoulders, pulled behind one ear. Her face had paint smudges at the edge of one cheek, like she'd forgotten to clean up in a hurry. Her eyes were alert, but kind, the kind of teacher who saw more than grades. "That's Miss Whitmore," Lily said, softer now, as if saying the name made the hallway safer. "Miss." Dana Whitmore reached them and lowered her voice. "Everything okay?" Lily nodded too quickly. Ethan met the teacher's gaze. "I'm Ethan Cole," he said. "I live nearby. I saw her get bothered yesterday." Dana's eyes flicked to Ranger, then back to Ethan. "Thank you," she said, cautious but sincere. "Lily spends lunch in the art room sometimes. It's quieter." "I figured," Ethan said. Dana's mouth tightened. "Those boys, they're not my students, technically. They come over from the high school for a program, but they like to roam." "Where's the front office?" Ethan asked. Dana hesitated. "We can report it." "We do. It doesn't always stick." That told Ethan more than a full explanation would have. He looked down at Lily. "Do you feel safe going home?" Lily's chin lifted. "Stubborn. I'm not a baby." Ethan nodded again. "Good. Don't be. But if you ever need help, you tell Miss Whitmore, or you tell the crossing guard, or you tell ... He stopped himself before he said, "Call me," because he didn't want her to depend on him. Not yet. Dependence could be used. Dependence could be punished. Dana stepped in, reading his pause. "If you need anything, Lily, you come to me," she said firmly. "No questions." "Okay." Lily's shoulders dropped a fraction. "Okay." Ethan backed away first. He didn't want to make a scene. He didn't want to make Lily into a spectacle. As he turned, Ranger stayed with Lily for half a heartbeat longer, eyes on Kyle and Jared disappearing around the corner. Then the dog moved back to Ethan's side. Outside, the air felt sharper. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop showing up." No name, no explanation. Just the message, sitting in his palm like a threat you could carry. Ethan looked up across the street. A black SUV idled at the edge of the lot, half hidden behind a snowbank. The driver's side window was up, but Ethan could feel the eyes behind it, watching him like he was the one who didn't belong. He slid his phone back into his pocket and kept walking. Ranger steady beside him. If someone wanted him scared, they were already too late, because now he was paying attention. The parking lot line. Ethan read the text again in his pocket without looking at it. "Stop showing up." He didn't answer. Answers were invitations. He let the words sit there like a pebble in his boot. Annoying, but useful. It told him one thing with certainty. Someone cared. The next morning, Duluth woke to a brittle cold that made the snow squeak underfoot. The lake wind carried tiny needles of ice that stung the skin between scarf and collar. Ethan's navy parka brushed his thighs as he walked, red and black flannel visible at the throat, faded jeans stiff with cold, brown boots gripping the sidewalk by memory. He kept his pace steady, like he wasn't thinking at all. Ranger walked close, shoulder aligned with Ethan's knee. The dog's ears moved like antennae, catching details Ethan couldn't hear. Ranger's nose sampled the air in short pulls, cataloging the world. Ethan's head stayed down, but his eyes tracked everything. Reflections in storefront windows, tire tracks fresh in slush, the way one car sat too long at a stop sign without a reason. He did not go straight to the school. He approached from the south, using the alley behind the hardware store to get a view of the main road without being obvious. It was an old habit, the kind that never fully left your body. Angle in. Observe. Confirm. Do not be the first thing seen. From behind a snowbank, he could see the Westgate Middle School parking lot. The black SUV was there again. Same make, same dull shine, same dark windows. Parked at the far edge, half hidden behind a plowed ridge. Engine running. Not a parent, not a staff member. Just a presence. Ethan noted time and distance without thinking. 7. 42A. Lot is 40 yards across. 2 exits. 1 camera above the front doors. 1 blind spot near the gym entrance where the plows piled snow too high. Ranger's posture changed. Not stiff this time. Focused. The dog's nose angled toward the SUV, then swept left, catching something on the wind. Ethan followed the line of Ranger's attention and saw 2 men stepping out of a different vehicle near the corner of the lot. They wore heavy jackets and knit caps like everyone else, but their movements didn't match the cold. Too smooth, too practiced. Not commuters, not teachers. One of them glanced at the school doors, then at his phone, then back at the doors again. Ethan's jaw tightened. He moved away before anyone could notice him watching. He did not want a staring contest. He wanted information. Inside the school, the hallway lights buzzed. Boots squeaked on tile. The smell was heat and disinfectant, and yesterday's lunch. Ethan stayed near the front office, pretending to read a posted flyer about winter break programs while his eyes tracked the flow. Lily appeared near the lockers. Today she looked more guarded, shoulders lifted, sketchbook held tight like armor. A fresh strip of tape held the corner where it had torn, and she kept touching it as if checking it was still there. Kyle and Jared drifted closer again. Ethan saw it before it happened, the way predators circle without looking like they're circling. Jared positioned himself behind Lily. Kyle moved to her side, blocking her path toward the stairwell. They weren't just being cruel, they were steering. Ranger's ears tipped forward. The dog's gaze locked on the boy's hands. Kyle leaned in. "You get the note," he muttered. Lily's face tightened. "Leave me alone." Kyle's smile had no humor in it. "Come on, miss. Whitmore needs you." She said, "Bring your sketchbook." Lily blinked. Confusion flashed. Then suspicion. She didn't. Kyle's hand reached for the sketchbook. Lily jerked it back. That was the moment Ethan stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't bark orders. He moved like a door closing. Quiet. Final. "Back up," he said. Kyle's eyes snapped to him. "You again." Ethan kept his hands visible, palms open. A signal. "I'm not attacking. I'm not afraid. This isn't your lane," Ethan said. Jared scoffed, but his feet shifted slightly away from Ranger. The German Shepherd stayed silent, head level, eyes unblinking. Ranger didn't need sound. The dog's presence made the hallway feel narrower. Kyle's jaw worked. "She's coming with us." "Number," Ethan said. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It landed like a weight. Lily stood frozen between them, breathing fast. A teacher passed at the far end, distracted by her phone. Life moved on, blind to the small violence happening in plain sight. Ethan angled his body so Lily had a clear path behind him toward the office. He didn't touch her. Touch could be misread. Touch could be twisted. "Go," he said softly, without looking back. Lily hesitated. Ranger glanced at her, then back to Kyle, as if telling her the same thing. Lily slipped behind Ethan and moved toward the office, quick and quiet. Kyle's eyes followed her. His anger flared, and for a second he looked like he might swing. Ethan's weight shifted subtly to his back foot, knee stiff, but stable. Ranger's shoulders tensed. Kyle stopped himself. He didn't want to hit an adult in a hallway full of cameras, so he did the next thing. He smiled. "Fine," Kyle said. "We'll do this after school." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You're done." Kyle leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You don't even know who you're stepping on." Ethan held Kyle's gaze. "I know what you're doing." Kyle's smile faded. He stepped back, then turned away, pretending it was his idea. Ethan watched them go. Then he did something he hated. He followed. Not close, not obvious. He let the flow of students cover his movement. He tracked Kyle and Jared as they slipped down a side corridor toward the gym entrance, the blind spot he'd already marked outside. They pushed through the door into the cold. Ethan stopped at the doorway, not crossing the line. He stayed inside the warmth, using the glass to see without being seen. Ranger stood beside him, breath fogging the window. Outside, the snowbank by the gym loomed high. Kyle and Jared moved along it, talking to someone Ethan couldn't fully see, just a tall shape in a dark jacket. The shape handed something to Kyle, a folded paper. Kyle stuffed it in his pocket. Then the tall shape pointed toward the parking lot. Ethan followed the gesture. The black SUV sat there, still running, like a patient animal waiting to pounce. Ethan's pulse stayed slow. That was the point. He forced it to stay slow. Panic wasted time. Anger made mistakes. He pulled his phone out and opened his camera without lifting it high. He angled it toward the glass, capturing reflections instead of faces, enough to show shape, vehicle, movement. Enough to prove pattern without stepping into a fight. Ranger's ears flicked. His head turned sharply. Not to the SUV, to the far end of the lot, near the staff parking. A man in a clean black coat was walking toward the school doors. He looked out of place, not because he wasn't dressed for winter, but because he was dressed too well. The coat was tailored. The boots were polished. His hair was dark and neatly cut. His face clean-shaven. His smile already prepared like a business card. He carried a clipboard. He moved with the confidence of someone used to being welcomed. Ethan didn't recognize him, but Ranger did something Ethan had never seen him do in a school parking lot. The dog went utterly still. No growl, no bark. Just stillness, so complete, it was like the world paused around it. The man in the black coat glanced in Ethan's direction, eyes flicking briefly to Ranger, then away again, like he had taken a measurement. Then he walked inside. Ethan's instincts spoke in a voice he trusted more than his own thoughts. That man is not here by accident. Ethan tucked his phone away and started toward the front office. Ranger glued to his side. He did not know the man's name yet, but he knew this was the first time the watcher had chosen to step into the light. The clipboard smile. Ethan didn't go after the man with the clipboard, not in the hallway. A school was a fishbowl. Every movement had witnesses, and the wrong witness could become the loudest one. He stayed near the front office instead, posture relaxed, eyes sharp. Ranger sat at his heel, calm as stone, ears tracking footsteps through tile and air. The man in the tailored black coat moved with practiced ease, mid-40s, average height, fit without bulk, dark hair, neatly combed, clean-shaven face, and a smile that arrived before he did. He stopped at the counter and spoke to the secretary as if they already knew him. Ethan watched the angle of his shoulders, not nervous, not rushed, confident. A man like that never walked into a place unless he expected doors to open. Miss Dana Whitmore appeared from the corridor, scarf bright against her coat, paint smudge still on her cheek. Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then to Ranger, then to the man with the clipboard. Mr. Maddox, she said, and the warmth in her voice didn't reach her eyes. So that was the name. Trent Maddox turned toward her with an easy grin. Dana, always a pleasure. His gaze shifted to Ethan. Polite interest. And this is Ethan Cole, Dana said. A neighbor. He's been checking in on Lily. Maddox nodded, as if Ethan had been introduced at a charity luncheon. We love community, he said. It's what keeps kids safe. Ethan's jaw tightened at the word safe. Maddox's eyes dropped to Ranger for half a second, just long enough to register the dog as an obstacle, then returned to Ethan. Beautiful shepherd, he added, like he was talking about the weather. Ranger didn't move, but Ethan felt the dog's focus like heat on his shin. Dana cleared her throat. What brings you by? Maddox lifted the clipboard slightly. New safety program, he said, turning the pages with gloved fingers. We're donating upgraded cameras and visitor protocols. The district loves it. Parents love it. He smiled wider, teeth white and even. Nothing wrong with a little extra protection. Cameras were working fine yesterday, Dana said. Maddox's eyes didn't blink. Were they? His tone stayed friendly. I heard there was an incident. Ethan kept his voice flat. Kids getting pushed around isn't new. Maddox's gaze sharpened for a fraction, then softened again. It is when it becomes a liability, he said. That's what I help schools avoid. Ethan understood then. Maddox wasn't here to protect anyone. He was here to control the story. And maybe to control a child. Dana stepped closer to the counter. Lily is in my room. Working. Maddox nodded. Perfect. I'd like a quick word with her. Formalities. Just a friendly check-in. Dana's posture stiffened. She doesn't need that. Maddox's smile held. She lives with her grandmother. Correct. Margaret Hart. Dana's eyes flashed. Yes. Maddox lowered his voice as if sharing a concern. I've been helping Maggie. She signed up for our neighborhood protection service. We look after our seniors. He tapped the clipboard. Sometimes paperwork gets confusing. I'm just making sure everyone's comfortable. Ethan's fingers curled inside his pockets. Protection service. In Ethan's world. That was just another word for leverage. Dana hesitated, then nodded toward the hall. 5 minutes. In the art room, and I'll be there. Of course, Maddox said smoothly. Transparency is everything. Ethan followed at a distance. Not close enough to look like a threat. Not far enough to lose sight. Ranger moved with him. Silent. Steady. The art room smelled like paint and damp clay. Warm compared to the hallway. Lily sat at a table by the window. Sketchbook open. Pencil moving in quick. Controlled strokes. Her shoulders were hunched, but her eyes were focused, like drawing was the only place she could breathe. When she saw Maddox, her pencil stopped. Dana stood between them. Lily, this is Mr. Maddox. He's here about school safety. Maddox approached slowly, palms open. Lily, right, he said warmly. You're quite the artist. Lily's gaze flicked to Dana, then to Ethan at the doorway. Her mouth tightened. She didn't answer. Maddox chuckled softly, like shyness was charming. I've seen your name in a few programs. Summer art camp applications, scholarships, big dreams. He leaned in slightly. I like big dreams. Dana's voice sharpened. Her applications were misplaced. Maddox straightened, smiling. Misplaced happens. He turned back to Lily. But I can help. I know people. I fund things. I can make sure your work gets seen. Lily's fingers tightened around her pencil. Why? Maddox's smile didn't fade, but his eyes cooled. Because talented kids deserve opportunities, he said. Then, quieter. And because your grandmother deserves peace. Ethan felt Ranger shift, one paw sliding half an inch forward, still silent, still controlled. A warning without noise. Lily swallowed. Leave my grandma alone. Maddox sighed as if disappointed. I'm not bothering her, he said. I'm keeping her safe. But safety has rules. He tapped the clipboard again. Maggie signed. That means she agreed to cooperate. Dana bristled. That sounds like a threat. Maddox lifted his hands. No threats, he said gently. Just reality. His gaze drifted to Lily's sketchbook. May I? Lily snapped the sketchbook shut. The sound cracked through the warm room like a small gunshot. Maddox's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled again. No problem, he said. I'm sure it's lovely. Ethan spoke for the first time in that room. His voice was calm, but it carried. She's not showing you anything, he said. And you're not using her grandmother to get to her. Maddox turned toward Ethan. Expression polite. Mr. Cole, he said. I respect veterans. Truly. But this isn't your business. Ethan didn't move. Navy parka open enough to show the flannel. Hands still in pockets. Brown eyes steady. It is when kids get cornered. Maddox's smile thinned. Cornered. He glanced at Dana as if she were overreacting. I'm offering help. Some people don't know how to accept it. Lily stood abruptly, chair scraping. She looked small, but her voice came out sharp. Stop, she said. Everyone froze. Lily's cheeks were flushed, eyes bright with something like anger and fear mixed together. "You keep saying my grandma signed," she said. But she didn't understand what she was signing. Maddox's tone stayed soft. "That's why I'm here," he replied. "To explain." "Number," Lily said. Her hands trembled, but she didn't back down. "You're here because you think I have something." Dana's breath caught. Maddox's eyes flicked to Lily's sketchbook again, just once, and that was enough. Ethan's mind clicked into place. The SUV, the boys steering her, the note, the misplaced applications. Maddox wasn't chasing Lily because she was vulnerable. He was chasing Lily because she had seen something. Ethan stepped one pace closer, careful not to crowd. Ranger rose silently, positioning between Ethan and Maddox. Body angled, eyes locked. No teeth, no sound. Pure pressure. Maddox's smile finally slipped. For the first time, his eyes looked annoyed instead of friendly. "Lily," he said, voice still controlled. "We can do this the easy way." Dana's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down, then went pale. "Ethan," she whispered. "Someone just broke into Maggie Hart's storage shed behind the library." Lily's face drained of color. Ethan's blood went cold. He didn't ask how Dana knew. He didn't ask who had called. He already knew what it meant. Maddox took a slow step back, putting on his smile again like a mask. "Well," he said lightly, "sounds like you all have a busy day." He turned toward the door as if leaving was his choice. Ethan didn't stop him. Not yet, because the real fight wasn't in the art room. It was wherever Maggie kept what Maddox wanted. Whiteout at the front gate. Ethan moved fast, but not frantic. Panic made noise. Noise made mistakes. Outside the school, snow skated sideways in the wind, and the streetlights already looked tired. Dana Whitmore jogged beside him, scarf flapping, phone pressed to her ear. Ranger stayed tight to Ethan's left knee, matching his pace, paws sure on the slick sidewalk. "The library shed," Dana said. Breath sharp. "The back storage. Maggie keeps donation boxes there." Ethan's mind snapped through a checklist. Distance, lines of sight, exits. Who might still be there? He didn't run straight down the main road. He cut behind a row of snow-dusted cars, used the buildings as cover, and approached the library from the side where the wind blew hardest. If anyone was watching, their eyes would be watering. Ranger's nose worked hard, pulling the air in like he was reading a message written in smoke. Then the dog's head dipped toward the ground, tracking a trail Ethan couldn't see. Fresh footprints, more than one set, heavy boots. Behind the library, the shed door hung open, one hinge groaning in the wind. Snow had blown inside like flour. Maggie Hart stood near the doorway, a small, older woman in a puffy coat, gray hair pinned back, hands shaking around a ring of keys. She was about 68, with a tired face and eyes that had seen too many helpful men. Lily stood close to her, 12 and pale, sketchbook clutched so tight her knuckles looked white. Dana moved first, gentle. "Maggie, are you hurt?" Maggie swallowed and shook her head. "Number." But they came in like they owned the place. Her voice cracked. They tore through the boxes. They knew what they wanted. Ethan kept his tone steady. "Did you see them?" "One wore a knit cap," Maggie said. "The other one kept his hood up." I yelled. "They didn't even look at me, like I wasn't real." Ranger stepped into the shed, silent, nose down, then lifted his head and stared into the snowbank behind it. Ethan followed and saw a dark rectangle half buried in drifting snow. A clipboard. Ethan picked it up with 2 fingers. The paper clipped to it was blank, but the metal clip was still warm, like it had been held recently. Dana's face tightened. "Maddox." Ethan didn't say the name out loud. Names carried power. He didn't give Maddox any more. He crouched by the snowbank and found something else. A torn corner of an envelope, a printed logo, a phone number. "Neighborhood Protection Services," Dana read softly, anger rising. Maggie's shoulders sagged. "I told them I didn't have money." He smiled like it didn't matter. Lily's voice came out thin. "He wanted my sketchbook." Ethan looked at her, What's in it? Lily. Lily hesitated, then made a decision. Not a child's decision, a survivor's. She opened the sketchbook to a page she had taped closed from the inside. She peeled it back carefully. A pencil drawing stared up at them. Two men shaking hands in a parking lot. One face was clean-shaven, hair neat, smile practiced. Trent Maddox, behind him, half in shadow. A black SUV and a man with a knit cap. Lily had drawn the angle of the shoulders, the posture, the way the man stood like he expected trouble. It was by the gym door, Lily whispered. I was late. I saw them. He looked right at me. Dana covered her mouth. Ethan felt his stomach turn cold, not from winter. This wasn't only about school safety. It wasn't only about bullying. It was about control. It was about adults using paperwork and fear to corner people who had no room to fight back. Ethan took a slow breath. Good job, he said to Lily. You did the right thing. Maggie stared at the drawing, tears shining. I didn't protect her. Lily leaned into her. You did. You kept me. Ethan's phone was already in his hand. He called Officer Ben Klein. Ben answered on the second ring. Cole. Break in behind the library, Ethan said. Maggie Hart's shed. They were looking for a sketch. We have it, and we have a name. There was a pause. Then Ben's voice sharpened. Are you safe right now? We're safe, Ethan said. But they will try again. And they'll try at a place with witnesses. The school, Ben said. Ethan looked at the white blur of the street and nodded. Pickup time. They'll come with papers. They'll try to take her. Ben didn't argue. Stay put. I'm coming. Ethan hung up and looked at Dana. We don't go home alone today. Dana nodded once, understanding. They moved Maggie and Lily inside the library, away from windows, into the back office, where shelves blocked lines of sight. Ethan positioned them with the kind of care he used to give injured teammates. Not dramatic, just precise. Rangers stayed at the door. Ears forward, body still. Ben arrived with 2 officers within minutes. Snow caked on his hat. He was in his 30s. Sturdy. Clean cut. Eyes alert. He listened to the story without interrupting, then looked at the sketch. That's enough for a warrant, he said quietly. And enough for a sting. Ethan didn't smile. Then do it right. Ben's gaze met his. We will. The next morning, the storm worsened. Duluth turned into a white tunnel where sound traveled strangely, muffled and close. The school stayed open half-day, the kind of decision made by people who didn't walk to work. Ethan stood across from the front gate in his navy parka, flannel at the collar, jeans stiff, boots planted. Ranger sat beside him, calm, watching the flow of cars and kids. Dana waited on the steps near the office door. Lily and Maggie were inside, with Ben. At 11:58, a black SUV rolled into view, slow and confident. At 11:59, a man in a clean black coat stepped out with a clipboard. Trent Maddox. He walked toward the entrance like he owned the snow under his shoes. 2 men lingered near the SUV, hands in pockets, heads down. Ethan counted. Distance to gate, 20 yards. Distance to cover, 10 yards to the bus stop post. 2 exits for the SUV. Ben came out the office door at exactly noon. Badge visible. Posture relaxed. 2 officers moved wide, not rushing, just closing the corners. Maddox saw them and slowed. His smile tried to hold. Officer, Maddox said, voice smooth. I'm here for a legal pickup. Paperwork is all in order. Ben didn't reach for his gun. He didn't shout. He simply held out his hand. Let me see. Maddox offered the papers. Ben read. Then he looked up. These are forged. The air went very quiet. Maddox's smile dropped. That's a serious accusation. Ben nodded. It is. One of the men by the SUV shifted, hand sliding out of his pocket. Ranger rose, not lunging, not wild, just a step forward, body angled, eyes locked. A single low bark broke the silence, short and final. The man froze. Ben's officers moved in, controlled. hands on wrists, turning bodies without punches or theatrics. Maddox tried to step back, but Ben was already there, cuffs ready. "You're under arrest," Ben said. "Attempted abduction, breaking and entering, extortion." Maddox's eyes flicked to Ethan, a flash of hate, like a mask ripped off. Ethan didn't blink. He didn't gloat. He just stood there, steady, while the storm swallowed the sound of Maddox's protests. Inside, Lily watched from a hallway window, one hand pressed to her mouth. Maggie wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Dana exhaled shakily, then wiped at her eyes like she was annoyed at them. A week later, the library hosted a small community night. Not a fundraiser with big speeches, just soup, coffee, and neighbors showing up because they finally understood what had been happening under their noses. People brought blankets, gift cards, warm gloves for kids who walked. Dana hung Lily's drawings along one wall, including the sketch that had started it all. Ben stopped by in uniform, awkward under praise, and left quickly. Ethan tried to slip out early. He almost made it to the door. "Mr. Cole," Lily called. He turned. Lily walked up, cheeks pink, hair tucked under her knit cap. She held out a new page from her sketchbook. On it, she had drawn a man in a navy parka standing under a streetlight, snow falling around him. Beside him sat a German shepherd, ears up, eyes watchful. At the bottom, in careful letters, Lily had written one word: home. Ethan felt something tight in his chest loosen, just a little. Ranger leaned forward and sniffed the page, then sat again, calm as ever. Lily smiled, small but real. "Thank you," she said. Ethan nodded once. "Keep drawing," he told her, "and keep your head up." Outside, the wind still blew off the lake, cold and sharp. But for the first time, it didn't feel like it was trying to erase anyone. Some nights, evil doesn't roar. It blends in. It wears a friendly smile, stands under warm lights, and counts on the world being too busy to notice. But God has a way of placing guardians where we least expect them. A steady man with a wounded knee can still walk straight into danger if his heart is anchored in what's right. And a loyal dog doesn't need words to speak truth. Ranger's silence was not weakness. It was wisdom. The kind that feels like a miracle when it saves a child at the exact second hope is fading. If this story left you with a lump in your throat, let it also leave you with a promise. Pay attention. Trust the small warnings, protect the vulnerable, and remember that courage is often quiet, faithful, and loyal enough to stand its ground in the cold. Share if you believe in angels with paws. Comment "Amen" to bless our veterans. Subscribe for the next story.